Hi everyone, Glenn Kendall here with Concourse Hosting, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to make a Sankey diagram. In this particular case, I'm going to make a Sankey diagram that's using nonprofit data, specifically connecting proposal status associated with a solicitor. So over here we have different statuses that I mouse over, we can see the flow. And over here on the right, we have the corresponding solicitors. The thickness of the line there in the middle corresponds to the amount of the proposal going back to each of the statuses. So to create the data, I'm actually using this site called Mockaroo, and I just did this as a way to get some nice clean data. You can of course take this same concept and export data out of Razor's Edge or CRM or Lucien or whatever other fundraising CRM tool that you're using. But I'm just using Mockaroo just to kind of show how it all works. So in Mockaroo, I've made a schema, and I'm just telling it to generate a proposal ID, a proposal name, to have a random amount between 10,000 and 100,000 for the proposal amount. And then for solicitor name and status, I'm actually have a set list that I'm pulling from that I also generated randomly, but I don't want just random solicitors, right? I want the same group of solicitors to be associated with those proposals. So that's why I have to associate that with a list that I upload. So the way I do that is here within Mockaroo, you can have these data sets. So I have one that's solicitors, and it's really simple. It's just basically a list of solicitor names, but Mockaroo also lets you weight those solicitor names with this column called frequency. And so when I do that, that controls how frequently, when it's randomly generating the rows, how frequently it'll assign it to a particular solicitor. So this one, for example, will show up 4 times more often than this one. And just to show a little bit more how that works, I'm going to just download what I have here now and tweak it. So everything is a CSV file in Mockaroo. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up Excel, and then I'm just going to change the frequency values here. So instead of this one being 100, let's bump that down to 25 and make this one 100 instead, and then maybe make this one, I don't know, 75. And save that. And replace what's there. And now I'll just upload that same file back in. And now my frequencies have changed there. I don't think I have to refresh this, but I just want to show you the solicitor name here is pulling from this data set, Sankey solicitors. And now I can go ahead and download the data. So by default, Mockaroo will do 1,000 rows, and that's what you get if you use the free service with Mockaroo. However, if you sign up for a paid service, you can do a lot more rows. So click on that, go ahead and download the data, and there it is. So in order to make a Sankey diagram, the first thing you need to do is duplicate your data. And the reason you have to duplicate your data is because we're associating really 2 columns within the same data set and showing a flow between them. This is one column, which is the status, and the other column over here, which is the solicitor. So in order to kind of generate the bits in the middle here that show the flow between them, we need to duplicate the data and then union them together. So let me show you how that works. So this is the data I just now generated, Sankey proposals. And I'm going to add another column here at the end. This is called viz side. And I'm going to call this one status, because that's the status side of the viz. Copy this. And we'll do a save as. So by the way, the method that I'm using here to do the Sankey diagram is something that I got from watching a YouTube video by Super Data Science. So shout out to Super Data Science for all their work in helping explain to me how this is done. And as the folks at Super Data Science point out in their video, this whole process of creating a Sankey diagram is something that was pioneered by several people in the Tableau community. People like Jeffrey Schaefer, Olivier Catherine, Chris Love, Noah Salvatera, Joe Mako. So thanks to all you folks. And if I can spell the word solicitor while I talk here, we'll have the data duplicated. All right, there that is. So this is what I'm aiming for, so I'm going to start from scratch and show you how to do this. So I'm using Tableau 2018.2, and I'm going to start by opening my downloads folder. So here's what I downloaded from Mockaroo, and then this is with that added column status. What you do is you can convert this to a union, and then when you do that, you can add other files in there as well, and they'll be unioned together. Now the key thing to make a union work is that your column names need to be identical, and it'll just basically add all the rows together. So we downloaded 1,000 rows, and now I have 2,000 rows. All right. So to start building things, there's a process that we have to go through to basically create the data points that are necessary to draw these lines. This process is called data densification. Tableau needs to have a data point in order to draw something, and so we have to go through this data densifying process in order to give Tableau something to do. So the first step is I'm going to create this calculated field called toPad, and I'm going to say if the viz side equals status, then 1, else 49. And the 49 is just kind of a magic number that, again, folks in the Tableau community have developed over time as being something that seems to work well. If you use less than 49, then this line tends to be jagged. And if you use more than 49, then it's kind of overkill. So 49 is just kind of, again, this magic number that folks have come up with. So we have the left side 1 and the right side 49, but now we need to create all the points in between. To do that, we will right-click on this field and do something called creating bins. And I'll call this field padded, and the size of the bins is going to be 1. And by doing this binning, this then creates all of those elements 1 through 49 across the middle that we will then be using to draw our lines. So the next bit here is just a series of calculated fields that, again, folks in the Tableau community have come up with as a way to, make this all work. So I'm just going to run through these here. The first one is called T, and T is the index minus 25 divided by 4. So T has to do with just the spacing as you go along in drawing that line. Pull T up to here, and we're going to calculate T rather than along the table across. We're actually going to use this padded function, so we need to pull it down, not padded function, the padded calculated field. So we're going to compute using padded, this T element. Next of all, I'm going to create another field called rank. So this one is called rank 1. And rank 1 is basically the percent of the total across the viz. So we define this as the running sum of the proposal amount to get my brackets and parentheses right here in order for it to find proposal amount. I just wanted to auto-complete that value. And then divide that by the total of the sum of the proposal amount. So rank 1 basically gives us the percent of the total across as we go. And we're actually going to need 2 of those. So we're going to duplicate this and call the second one rank 2. So basically 1 is used for one side and the other for the other side. Again, this will make more sense as we go along here. The next thing I'm going to do is create something called the sigmoid function. The sigmoid is what creates this S-shaped curve. So rather than just having, a straight line, a diagonal line that goes across, it has this S-shaped curve again. So the sigmoid function is what lets us do that. And the sigmoid function is just a mathematical function. So that is 1 over 1 plus e, which is defined as the exponent of 1, raised to the minus t power. That's the sigmoid function. And finally, another calculated field here to finish things out. This is the curve. And so this is what we'll actually be adding to the rows column in Tableau to make all of this happen. The curve is rank 1 plus rank 2 minus rank 1 and then multiplied by our sigmoid function. The reason that it's rank 2 minus rank 1 is that just kind of creates the mirror image. So again, in order to make the sigmoid function work, this is kind of, this point over here is the mirror image of this point. So we kind of flip it on its head in order to give it that effect. All right, so that's it for the main calculations that we have to add here. So now let's start building the Sankey diagram. So I've got the T function or T calculated field in the columns, curve over in the rows. And the next thing I need to do is do a calculated field with this curve calculation. And this was where it gets a little bit complicated, is that there's actually a nested table calculation. So within there, you can do nested calculations for these different values that we're using. So one for rank 1, one for rank 2, and one for T. So we'll do the first one for rank 1, and we're actually going to go across specific dimensions here. And I forgot I need to add my other dimensions to the detailed tab in order for them to show up. So I'm going to do my table calculation. I'll start with rank 1. And the order of these matters in terms of when it does the calculation. So we want it to start with the status because that's the one over on the left. So it can actually drag this up to the top, and then solicitor name is going to be next, and then padded. So that's for the first nested calculation there. Rank 1, status, solicitor name, and then padded. Rank 2 is going to be basically the opposite of that. So again, I'm going to be using all these values, but now I'm going to go solicitor name, and then status, and then padded. And T, there was already a calculation set up for that, and it's going to use that same one, which is just using padded. And you can see in the background here all the numbers associated with it. It's just showing that because I have the dialog box open for the table calculation. Those go away as soon as I close it. So you can see now the curve starting to happen, the Sankey diagram starting to come together, and we're starting to get, these flow elements in place. So now just going to do some formatting and clean things up a bit. Just formatting the sheets. I'm going to get rid of the grid lines and the zero lines. And on these axes, there's some extra data over here at the end, these extra circles. So that's just part of the data densification process. We're going to tell Tableau we don't care about that extra stuff. We're only interested in values between -5 and 5. And similarly, for the other axis, we're just interested in values between 0 and 1. However, we need to reverse this axis because of the way that the sorting is done, so that the values show up in the correct order. So we flip that one on its head. And instead with going with automatic, we're going to go with line here. Okay. So the final thing that we need to do is pull this padded value. Remember, the padded value is all of the bins. And we're going to pull that over to path. So when you create lines in Tableau, it's doing its best to kind of figure out how to get from one side to the other, but without all that data in the middle, all of those bins, it can't do a good job of doing that. So as soon as we drag padded over to the path, it's able to create the lines we're looking for. And we start to have the Sankey diagram at this point. Now I'm just going to add some color. I'm going to throw some color on each side, both the status and the solicitor name. And so together Tableau is just throwing in a color palette that it's choosing as default. I'm going to go with the pastel color palette just because it kind of stands out a bit more. So now the only thing that we're missing is the thickness of the line, which again, as I mentioned earlier, that's associated with the proposal amount. However, if we drag proposal amount up to size, it doesn't quite work. And again, the reason for that is that the proposal amount is not aware of the binning that we're doing in the middle there. So in order to trick Tableau into showing the right amount, I'm going to do pipeline, call this pipeline sizing. And we do the window average of the sum of the proposal amount. And we also compute this one using padded. And there we go. Now we have a thickness that is associated with the proposal amount between the status and the associated solicitor. I'm going to go ahead and hide these axes, so we don't want to see these. And I'll go ahead and rename this sheet. Just call it Sankey. So the next thing I want to do is have a dashboard and then have, as we have over here, have basically a stacked bar chart on each side. that connects everything together. So I'm going to make another sheet here, and we'll drag proposal amount up to the top, and we're going to drag status over there to the color. Remember, we changed the color palette for color. We wanted to go with something pastel-y. And then we also have status on the label. So we can see what's going on a little bit more. Then I'm actually going to do the proposal amount on the tooltip. But instead of just doing the straight proposal amount, I'm going to do a quick table calculation and show the percent of total. Do a little formatting here, change the size of this a bit, make it a little bit bigger. And then on the tooltip, we'll format this. So that way when I mouse over it, we can see the percent associated with that. And I think as far as the formatting goes, we don't need to see that many decimals worth of percentage. We can just have no decimals. There we go. So it just gives us a sense of those amounts. So we'll call this the status side. And now just need to do the same thing for the solicitor side. So I'm going to duplicate this and just drag solicitor name over here on top of status just so it takes its place. Again, changing the color this time. We'll make the color just gray. And now you can see, as I talked about earlier, the solicitors that I gave more weight to are in fact showing up as getting more of the proposal amounts. We'll call this one solicitor. Hide the title. Hide the title here. Don't need the header. Don't need the header here. And now we'll create a dashboard and put it all together. So status over here on the left. Solicitor on the right. Actually, let me get rid of these legends. There we go. Yeah, hide the title there, hide the title there. Pull the formatting over a bit. Maybe something like that. Maybe also do some formatting here just so we don't see the lines. Yeah, that's the axes rulers. And the zero lines, get rid of all of those. And finally, I'm going to add some actions. So I'll do a highlight action so that when I hover over the status side, it shows me both the status and the Sankey part in the middle. And add a second highlight action for the solicitor side. That's going to show the solicitor and the Sankey portion in the middle. There you go. That's how you make a Sankey diagram using nonprofit data, in this case linking proposals with solicitors. but you can use this for anything. You can use it for connecting, say, gift amounts or total giving at your organization with fund distribution. There's any number of ways that you can use this as a fun way to visualize your data. And it's not something that you need to have updated on a regular basis. This is more of like an end of the year, or end of the quarter type thing, to just kind of give an idea where, kind of overall how things are doing. But Sankey diagram is fun because it's, can be colorful, it can be inviting, and can invite more questions. You can actually, have more sheets in here that would allow you to do a drill down. So you could click on a specific solicitor, say, and go and look at all of their proposals and see more detail and breakdown there. So there's really any number of things that you could do. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more like this, subscribe to our list, which is basically, I do a webinar once a month. And in order to get invited to that list, text the word Concourse to the number 345345, and that will start the process of getting you on the list. And you'll be invited to future webinars like this. Again, I do these about once a month. And that's it. So thank you so much for joining.